You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today, we're actually going to just have some discussions about some current topics. And by the way, I forgot the date at the beginning of the show. So it is October 23rd, 2023. That scary time of the year. It's usually just before our elections, but fortunately, Halloween is the only thing around the corner this year for us in California, so not quite as scary as usual. But the rest of the world seems pretty scary, and we're going to talk about some of those topics on the show. Before we get into what those topics are going to be, let me introduce you to the panel. In our upper left, or in our lower left-hand corner, rather, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In the lower right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett, and he is a pilot in the state of California. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. Some of the topics, I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're going to cover. We're going to get just a little bit of an update on the Israel-Palestine conflict and a potential insurrection here in the United States over that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Biden's reckoning on immigration and sort of where a lot of that has gone and where it seems to be going. We're going to have a little topic that we've had to put off a few times on canceling the science that we're going to talk about, sort of a political correctness trumping science. And then that's the science, by the way. and then finally, just a little blip from our Knucklehead Noise Patrol about Biden and the military-industrial complex. So let's get right into it. James, could you bring up our invisible hand? James, Jess, could you bring up the our visual here? So we wanted to talk a little bit about this. There was a hospital bombing in as some of the exchanges that just started to happen. Once Israel started responding to this terrorist attack that they had. One of the things that happened, as almost all these conflicts, a hospital got bombed. So you could almost like set your watch by these things that something terrible like this is going to happen. And so it was a pretty horrifying thing. At first, we heard the numbers were around 500, which is really odd because a lot of times, this is something where it takes time to figure out what the damage was. But I guess the people within the Hamas government that are in charge of this immediately had a number, and I think it was 500 dead. So, you take that for whatever it's worth. But they claimed the hospital was hit, but it turned out it wasn't the hospital. It was a parking lot. They claimed Israel did it, and it turned out it wasn't probably Israel after some of the evidence started coming in, but probably an errant Hamas rocket that was going to be fired into Israel. But there's still some back and forth in the fog of war. We can't always be sure of these things. But anyway, so there was all this happening, and there was some walk back on some of the news agencies in reporting this. But one of the things that was kind of interesting about this is it sort of feeds into this whole misinformation, disinformation thing we've been talking about a lot on the show recently. And last week when we talked about Israel, and there was this report that came out, and it was about 40 babies that had been beheaded. And although that story isn't super far from the truth, it's still, there was no direct evidence that there were in fact 40 babies that had been beheaded. Yet the story went all the way up to the White House, and Joe Biden was actually claiming he had seen evidence of it that he couldn't actually present. So anyways, this is a problem that in a lot of times these things, can cause responses that wind up causing us to do things that are pretty terrible. Well, one of the things that was happening here in the United States on that twisting of information was that Rashida Tlaib, one of our House members, our House of Representatives person, she had given a speech on this to rile up Palestinian protesters. And this was after the information came out that this was likely not an Israeli attack, but an errant Hamas rocket that had hit this hospital's parking lot. And yet she gave a speech outside of some of the Capitol office buildings to a huge number of protesters and got them so riled up that they wound up essentially raiding and occupying some Capitol buildings. And so, I mean, these were Capitol office buildings. I don't think this was the actual Capitol itself. But the point is, these people weren't supposed to be here. These were federal government buildings that housed, a lot of government business that was occurring. And so now we have a couple of video clips I want to share just so you can see sort of what the speech was like that she was giving. So maybe, James, you could roll clip 1.
And so I'm telling you right now, President Biden, not all America's with you on this one. And you need to wake up and understand that. We are literally watching people commit genocide and killing a vast majority just like this. And we still stand by and say nothing. We will remember this. But all of you, you need to know, I swear to God, Allah, you are on the right side of history.
So, you could see that, she was calling out Biden and that she, was essentially saying this was a genocide. And this is after she made some remarks that I guess were indicating that, it was Israel that bombed this hospital. And there's another video clip as well that just sort of cements this, talks about they're not going to let this lie. So maybe you could play that second video clip, James.
I want him to know, as a Palestinian American, is also somebody of Muslim faith, I'm not going to forget this. And I think a lot of people are not going to forget this. And it's not a threat. It isn't. They think we're joking. I mean, I think the White House and everyone thinks that we're just going to sit back and let this just continue to happen.
Okay, and then that all led within, I guess within an hour of her giving that speech, kind of like when Trump gave his speech, that all led to this. And maybe we could see the third video clip. So anyways, that's what we had to show you on that. But what do you guys think of this? I mean, it seems to be kind of parallel to what we saw Trump doing. And in Trump's speech, he also told his protesters to be peaceful too.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I don't see how you can throw January 6th people in jail for, in some cases, decades, the people who led that. And certainly you'd have to say Rashida Tlaib is the one who organized and led this, and not wind up doing something similar with these people. I mean, I think these should both be considered as protests and maybe a slap on the wrist for breaking into these buildings. But I mean, the idea that one group is put away for years, if not decades, and having most of their civil liberties taken away under the name of an emergency. And anyways, what do you guys think about
what political party is Rashid a part of?
The critical question. Obviously, she's a Democrat.
Oh,
and it's case. Not Tim is not only the political party. Okay, I think she has the right skin color and the right faith also to allow this to happen. Go ahead, though. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no. That's it. That's it. We say, okay, she's a Democrat. She's rather dark, and she's from a disadvantaged race in America, the Muslim race. Apparently, correct. Am I correct? She's Muslim.
Well, yeah, Muslim would be faith, not race.
Muslim is not a race, though, but she's Muslim. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're correct. But whatever her racial and religious and skin color and party affiliation is the correct one for.
Yeah. Oh, just to let you know, I think she's a native of Palestine too. Just so you know. So I mean, this is very personal for her.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about being a native. She was born in the United States.
Oh, okay. I thought she
Her
was actually a
parents,
native of
her
Palestine. Maybe I'm
parents
wrong.
were her parents were born in Palestine, what is called
Okay.
Palestine, but she
Ah,
was born here.
Okay.
I don't think as far as I know, she's not a naturalized citizen like I am.
Okay.
okay. Well, that would explain the the reticence of media and the authorities, I guess, for lack of a better word, to make a big deal out of this. Not that she doesn't have certain points that she has the right to get it across, of course, but yeah, to see the disparity between the reaction to the January 6th stuff and then because I don't call it an insurrection because it was not armed and it wasn't an insurrection to me, but and nor is this. This is just demonstrating and then trespassing, demonstrations and trespassing. It's far from an insurrection. So so there you go. That's all I can say is that she's not getting in trouble because she has all the correct, her I's are dotted and her T's are crossed.
Yes.
Oh, and Leon, before you get going, I just wanted to jump in with a piece of information. I just confirmed, I fact checked what you said, and you were correct, and I was wrong. She was born in Detroit, so proud citizen of Detroit.
Well, good, thank you. But we cannot ignore the horrible double standards here that are ongoing. So who I'm wondering when Rashida said we will not sit by and allow this to happen, which is those may not be her exact words, but it was something like it. Who was she directing that at? And when those people stormed the Capitol and took over the building, were those people going by her very words, which is that we are not going to sit by and allow these things to happen? So if the media was going to call January 6th this horrible insurrection led by Donald Trump, though Donald Trump told his supporters, we will peacefully go down to the Capitol and let our voices be heard. That's all he said, as far as we know. And here's Rashida telling them we are not going to sit by and allow this to continue. Why are we calling January 6th this horrible insurrection? People are being persecuted, placed in jail. Some people are still awaiting trial in prison, are still waiting trial. And why are we going to look at this? Well, it wasn't as big a deal. Why? You see, but this is the kind of problems we are having in our society. This selective persecution, the tolerance of lawlessness, we are allowing these things to continue, and we are on a dangerous path to nowhere. We are destroying our constitutional republic in the name of political correctness, in the name of social justice. This is a real problem. It really is.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were targeting Trump and his supporters for this kind of activity. And so only them that can't do it without getting in trouble. I
don't support what happened on January 6th. I don't support it at all. Okay, I mean, was right. But if they're going to persecute what Trump and company did, well, what happened to Rashida and company?
Or a better idea that I think is if you're going to let Rashid and her supporters just go with a kindness and an understanding that it's protest with trespass involved, and then you got to apply the same thing to Trump and his supporters, and in a similar fashion. I mean, if they committed a crime like destroyed property and that kind of thing, then go ahead and accuse them and convict them of vandalism and stuff like this. But all this stuff where they end up in jail and prison for however long, potentially decades, for vandalism, it's over the top.
Yeah, certainly. Just kicking your feet up. Yeah, kicking your feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk and getting thrown in jail for a few years. That seems like a pretty harsh sentence. So yeah. Leon, I think your audio is gone, Leon. So I don't know if you can hear us, but you're your audio isn't working. Oh, well, maybe you could try and come back in while we do that. Maybe that'll reset it for you. But anyways, so this is one of those things where, yeah, we're definitely seeing that, you know, the real challenge to the system here isn't so much the fact that, you know, that one side, you know, whether or not these are sort of insurrection-y or not. The big issue is whether or not the system treats us all blindly, you know, whether as far as is justice going to be blind in these
as it should be, as it should be.
Yeah. So but speaking of blind, certainly one of the things that you'd have to almost say is that our border policy has been sort of blind under Joe Biden in recent years. And so I know that was a topic that we were kind of wanting to talk about over the last few weeks. And Leon, I don't know if we've lost you again or not, but anyways, we'll keep going. I guess your technical difficulties will resolve while we go. Anyways, one of the things we've certainly seen is that we've had this massive number of migrants coming in under Biden. Certainly, that was one of the big contentions over the last decade almost, you know, the way Obama was handling it, and then Trump, and now Biden. And with Biden, it seems to be, you know, almost like, you know, the border invitations are almost like open on steroids up until almost recently. There's been a few changes as we get closer to the election. But you know, one of the things though that I think we kind of know here that kind of we wanted to bring up is that there have actually been quite, when we have this loose border policy where so many people are allowed to come in essentially unchecked, you know, the Biden administration, they just say, hey, look, we're here, we want asylum. So they give them a phone and they send them on their way into some city for months on end. And maybe they show up in a few months or a year to have their hearing on asylum. It appears that it's possible that a lot of these people may actually wind up, you know, being on terrorist watch lists. And under the times that we're in right now, that could be a big deal. And James, maybe I could get the visuals. I think we need to pull those up. James, can we get the, there we go. So here's an article from I think it's NBC News here. And they are showing that, yeah, the number of people on terrorist watch lists stopped at the U.S. southern border has risen. So, and, you know, we're if we think about what we kind of just saw over there in Israel, you know, where you essentially had this terrible attack by terrorists that, you know, it's about, I think, 1,500 terrorists had come over and done all this damage. But certainly 9/11 was just a handful of terrorists here, you know, maybe a couple dozen that caused all that damage. But here, if you just sort of opened up the borders and you're really not doing much homework on anybody, it seems like, you know, in a lot of cases, keep in mind that the Border Patrol agents aren't even getting to see everybody. They get a huge wave in one area and they have to abandon another area, and a whole bunch of people get across that don't even get checked. So, you know, and here's sort of some of the visuals. I don't think we got to see some of that, but just to give you a sense of what the problem looks like. This is the Los Angeles Times, just showing kind of the numbers we're dealing with. And of course, it's having huge burdens on some of our cities. And I guess we can, well, let's pull this up to, I guess before we get into that, let's talk about the terrorist issue first on this. What do you guys think about that? Is this something that is a serious issue with what's going on right now, and the fact that so many people are getting through that may have been on watch lists and other things like that?
Of course, it is a serious issue. I mean, we don't know who these people are. I mean, no matter what system we have in place in terms of immigration, migration, whatever you want to call it, it's never going to be perfect. We know there's no such thing. But we will have to do a damn better job of vetting people who enter in the United States. I mean, we have people, according to what we know right now, coming from almost 200 countries, different countries. And we have no clue who these people are. Now, the people, what NBC is reporting is the people that the Border Patrol was able to stop and identify. There are millions of people who what they call the getaways. I think it's about 1.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, since Biden has been president, who have gotten away, gotten into the country, and we have no clue who they are, and we have no clue where they are. So is this a serious problem? I would say this is a humongous problem. It is huge. Because we don't know who is entering our country. We have no clue who's entering our country. And we never know when the next terrorist attack will occur within the United States because the border is so widely open. This is a real problem. It is a real problem. And the Biden administration is allowing this to happen. And that's what they're doing. They're allowing this to happen because they're looking for votes down the road. They think, and that is their racist ideas here, okay? Because they think these people, well, they have the right skin color, so obviously they're gonna vote for us. So we're gonna prepare the population right now for this new group of people who will become Democratic voters. This is a horror beyond a horrible, a horror beyond a horrible, beyond a horror that's about to happen here in the United States. And I hope to God we do something about this and do something about it quick, because we don't know who is entering our country. We don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a big and growing potential problem for
Yes.
you, what you outlined there. Yeah, definitely. And the longer that we keep being involved in these wars all over the place, and uh, a bunch of guys wearing pants and sandals and AKs, either walked or with a ultralight or powered pair, and engaged complete civilians, some engaged some IDF forces, and I think all those people. But the idea that we need to send $58 billion in aid to Israel to combat that level, that low, super low level in an impoverished Gaza Strip, I don't even call it concentration, is really more accurate. But that Israel has got, they can't fight against guys wearing flip and gyms without our $58 billion in aid. They have such a low level military ability. They got their Abrams tanks out there and all this to go against, to invade this Gaza or whatever they're going to do. I mean, obvious, that's all to be seen, I suppose. I mean, but seriously, what's going on here? Yeah, is this a state of, a bunch of ragtag complete go in there and basically commit murder against unarmed people, and all of a sudden, they need aid from us. It's this that gets this kind of blowback of terrorist attacks. So maybe we ought not to get involved in every little thing we think we have to throw debt to, because we have no money to have it. We just go into further debt for it. So and these potential attacks from terrorists are essentially blowback, all of it, because of our all over the world in all these things. And so how about we cut it off there? I don't know. What do you think, Leo?
Well, I have to disagree with you with your description of Hamas and their intent. You see, the problem
Now,
here is that
I'm not talking about intent. I'm talking about ability. Their
no,
military
wait. I'm
capability
gonna get to that, Tim. I'm gonna get to that about
okay.
ability. Okay. The Israel is surrounded by people who are seeking their destruction, they believe that they're divinely required to remove the Jewish people from what they consider their lands, from the river to the sea, must be cleared of the Jews. Hamas their constitution or their charter or whatever you want to call it, is in the second article that requires the removal of the Jews from the river to the sea. This is not about the poverty of the people or about or anything like that. These people are well trained. How do you think they penetrated Israel here on the last in the last on the last in this attack, that the October 7th attack? They came by air, they came by land, and they came by sea, but they penetrated. They killed 1,300 unarmed people, basically innocent people who are not military combatants. They killed them.
Uh-oh, we lost your video again, Leon, or your audio rather. So maybe you have to re-come in however you came in before. But I'll just jump in real quick too to say, James, can you bring up the visual just to give you a sense too of some of the other issues here at play that kind of hammer home this. We still can't hear you, Leon. Maybe you want to come back in the way you did last time. Anyways, as far as like this article from Newsweek, so obviously there's been these calls for global jihad after this. So I mean, there's some real worry in other countries that there may be violence. And one of the things we talked about in our last show as well was the idea that they had also had places like France were literally shutting down pro-Palestinian protests because they were worried about this kind of thing. So certainly those are all troubling things with regards to liberty. But on the other hand, if what we just saw happen in Israel is being sort of having an exclamation point put on it, where some people are calling for more of that worldwide, that's a little bit troubling, especially when you consider that we really have no clue about who's coming over our borders. So just to hammer that home. So go ahead, Leon. I'll let you jump back in.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Watch the clock, though, Jason. Watch the clock.
Yeah. The clock is
hold on. Leon, before you come back in, let me just say we're about at the end of our time for our public access audience. However, this conversation will continue online. So if you're watching this there, you can go check out the rest of the conversation there. We also have a lot of other videos with people we've interviewed, about their efforts in promoting liberty and different organizations as well. So a lot of fascinating conversations. Go check those out as well. You can find us at Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble. So check that out. Okay, so back to the show.
No, as I was saying, but the thing that we always notice is that we always like to talk about the poverty in Gaza and the poverty on the West Bank, while Israel is such a prosperous place, blah blah blah, and all the exploitation that supposedly is going on. But do you ever notice that some of the most sophisticated weaponry these people could find the money and the capability to find? They would not feed their people. They would not build hospitals, build schools, but they indoctrinate their children to believe that they must destroy the Jews. That's what they're doing right now. Total indoctrination. And they with that one intent, to remove the Jews from those lands. They could never feed them. They're always so impoverished. Oh my goodness gracious. But the most sophisticated weaponry they could always find. They could always find it. Whether it's using a car, whether it's missiles that could shoot into Israel, they always can find it. They could build sophisticated tunnels to get into Israel whenever they need to. And these are the kind of things that's going on. This whole idea, this concept about these poor nations, we can't get ahead in life because those horrible Israelis. No, it's because of their policies, because of what they're doing with the money. I think the United States have given money to some of these people, and they cannot feed their people. They could always find weapons to achieve their goals. This is a problem.
If your people are starving because you have a corrupt leader, it seems like the last thing you want to do to help those people is hand money to their corrupt leader.
Well, and yeah, I I was hoping that Leon was not suggesting that the Palestinians in Gaza were funding it from their lucrative economy.
No, they're
So,
not.
so they're being given these things. Okay, they're not being given whatever other humanitarian style things that they deserve to have, or maybe that they should work on themselves. But they're being given it, including money from Israel itself through
Yes.
Netanyahu. Okay, including that. Okay, so for political reasons. Okay, so you know, I'm sorry if we also give money to it. Who knows where our money's going to? It goes everywhere, and it's
And,
so filled
uh,
with corruption and a lack of control that we don't really know and never will. But anyway, so we give money to Israel. Israel gives money to Gaza. Maybe we're through Israel giving money to Hamas, I should say, Hamas.
and,
We
and
do,
Tim,
So
real
we
quick,
do,
Tim,
we do,
oh,
Tim, but
hold
go
on.
ahead, yes.
Hold on. Hold on. Just you said something. I just wanted to make it clear to our audience what you were saying, because you mentioned Netanyahu giving money to Palestine, and essentially there's been a lot of allegations about recently from people like Scott Horton and others that, and I think they're backed up by evidence too, but that essentially Netanyahu was part of a political strategy, was propping up Hamas to be a foil against, I guess, the Palestinian Authority there, because he felt like that would be in the long-term interest of Israel if they had such a terrible leadership that the rest of the world couldn't stomach it. And I guess he's finding out maybe that wasn't so good. So,
yeah, okay. Judging on Netanyahu's 2019 speech to his cabinet, his speech, his reason is so that they don't have that Israel is compelled to meet them in the negotiating table with serious intent, because of course their leadership that propped up by Israel is so horrible that how can you even do diplomacy with people like that? That was the whole strategy behind the whole thing, which is why Hamas was propped up by Israel. So I'm going by Netanyahu's own words in 2019. So so there you go. So the whole thing is such a total complete cluster that I'm just honestly, I get to the point where I just don't care anymore. Everybody's, it's like Israel is certainly no pure as the wind-driven snow entity that hasn't done anything to these people in a concentration camp with zero freedoms. So I don't care what happens, honestly. If I just get, although I truly believe that there's a potential for peace. It won't be that they're not going to be having barbecues over at each other's house on the weekends, but they will at least stop throwing rockets at each other. And it has to be changed. You got to get rid of the Hamas has got to go, and Netanyahu's his ultra conservative entity has to go. His administration has to go, and you got to get people with the ability to sit down and talk, which is equally could be said for China, Taiwan, and Ukraine and Russia. It could be equally said about all that stuff. And of course, the United States doesn't take a leadership role in diplomacy. It's quite the opposite. They just say forget it. So if I get a little frustrated and cynical, I'm sorry. There's no diplomacy in the world today. That's the issue.
Well, Tim, I could see your frustration, and it's probably understandable, but I can't equate. I will not equate Netanyahu's political rise in Israel to that of Hamas's, because Netanyahu was elected. Now Hamas was elected, but they have in 2007, but they haven't had an election since then, and I don't think they have any planned anytime in the near future. The Palestinian Authority, who is in the West Bank, they're controlled by Fatah, who is another organization. Probably they don't have some of the terrorist activities as Hamas does, they also came to power, and they not elected. Fatah and Hamas actually fought a bloody a little civil war, shall we say, for control of the Gaza Strip in the 2005 2006, somewhere around that time, just after Israel left. So the whole point about all of this is, though, I do not want to equate a functioning democracy. We may not like some of the leaders that come out of their elections. I do not want to equate a functioning democracy with that of the rulership of Hamas of the Gaza Strip or the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. I mean, in Bill Clinton, one of the only things that I have to give Bill Clinton some credit for, or at least his administration, during Bill Clinton's time, they negotiated a deal where the Palestinians will get 87% of they were demanding. 87% in terms of the lands and all that kind of stuff and things like that. But Yasser Arafat, who was then head of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, refused that deal. So I know there's a lot of dirty dealing going on right now. I'm sure Netanyahu hands are not clean in all of this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the Palestinian, the other side, if they are seeking the annihilation of the other, there cannot be a peace. If they are seeking the annihilation of the Jewish people, there can never be peace. And there's no negotiation here, because that is in Hamas's charter and in the charter of other organizations in the Middle East, that they, from the river to the sea, they must clear the Jewish people of those lands. And it's not going to happen. They are not going to leave. They have to kill every one of them, I would imagine, before that happens.
You when you say that, you mean Hamas, not the not every Palestinian, I assume.
No. I mean, no, not every Palestinian, but you're
I
right.
just wanted to clarify that.
Hamas. I would say Hamas and their supporters. You're right, though.
Yeah.
It's good to clarify that. Hamas and their supporters. Yes.
But well, however they got into power, either by force or by vote, in your contrasting analogy here, which is very important. That well, I don't know how important it is how they got there actually, but the point is you got to get rid of them. So Hamas, whether you get rid of Netanyahu by vote and Hamas by force, they've got to be gotten rid of in order for fairness, there to be diplomacy.
Yeah.
But
Tim,
Tim, I have one little problem with that. Okay, is that yes, I would agree that a change of leadership could probably produce positive results. But the problem is, and the fundamental problem is, those articles in Hamas's charter and other terrorist organizations in the Middle East clearly states they want to destroy Israel as a country and remove the Jewish people from the river to the sea. If that mentality does not change, nothing changes, regardless of if you change your leadership.
I think I'm agreeing with you. You got to change it, and it's got to be changed by force, because Hamas is not going to willingly leave, and there's not going to be a democratic election. I'm just saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. You got to get rid of them. That's all. And now Netanyahu, he could be voted out. Okay, you don't want to forcibly remove.
But this is the problem, Tim. So if it's going to say we've got to remove them by force, who's going to remove them by force, right? I mean, this is the entire problem of the whole, Middle East, right? The U.S. is saying, well, we will come in and help you remove people by force.
So I'm going to circle back. You remove Hamas, the people with the gym pants wearing the gym pant wearing, and they attacked by air in a freaking powered hang glider. Are you kidding me? You really want to call that an air attack? I mean, yeah, it was from air. Come on. I mean, those things, you know how fast they go? At best, about 25 knots, maybe 20.
Well, I get it, Tim. We can't rehash.
So it's just a joke. The whole thing is a joke.
But they got there, Tim. Yeah. But they got into Israel. It was low tech. It was low tech. But they got into Israel.
They did. Well, they did. And that may draw into suspect Israel's ability to their intelligence ability, to not know about an impending thing with thousands of people. All right, that's who dropped the ball on that one. Okay, that still hasn't been worked out, figured out. So, but again, okay, I'm agreeing. It's like, why are you guys ganging up on it? Hamas
Well, no.
needs
My issue, Tim,
needs
is
to
you're
be
saying
removed, and Israel does not need $1 from the United States, not to mention 58 billion.
Tim, let me jump ahead for just a second. So let's say I guess you're saying that Israel has to remove Hamas, but if Israel moves Hamas and the Palestinians then turn around and vote again for somebody just like Hamas, what's the solution? I mean, this is kind of, because remember, they did elect them, and we had people like Jimmy Carter over there saying that this was a free and fair election. So, I mean, at what point, do we second guess people who are saying that this is what they believe? It's a tough situation no matter what. But I mean, just saying somehow somebody's got to use force. I mean, that's the whole problem. Everybody wants to use force. Right?
True.
Well, yeah. So again, Hamas was supported by Israel and others to get propped up. They put money in that so that they would have, so in Netanyahu's world, so that they could control the flame, the size of the flame. Well, they found out, oh gosh, we can't actually control the size of the flame, because eventually Hamas is going to come over here and kill 1,000 of our people, or however many were killed, 1,300, whatever. Yes. Okay, and so that's not controlling the size of the flame. All right, you've lost control, just like the United States lost control in 17 other propped up entities that we created, terrorist organization, including ISIS, which we propped them up too. Okay, so, oh wow, all of a sudden we lose control over our propped up little entities. We're trying to have we lost control of the rheostat on our little flame here. Oh, maybe you should stop doing this kind of intervention on these intervening by propping up evil entities. Okay, maybe that's the problem here. I don't know, but it's not something that the three of us do to prop these people up and to create this complete cluster of an international situation. And it's not us. It's these people in power. So I don't know. I don't have a solution. Geez, I'm frustrated as can be. This is just the most frustrating, the most despicable situation I can conjure up. And there ain't no easy solution. We got ourselves into this, and so did Netanyahu. Okay, they lost control of their flame, to utilize his analogy.
But there is.
So I don't. Honestly, you get what you pay for. You reap what you sow, Netanyahu and the United States government and Biden and Obama, and especially Clinton. Okay, they reap what they sow.
Well, there is a solution that's been on the table for God knows how many years, which is the two-state solution. That the Gaza Strip and the West Bank will become one state, and Israel will remain a state by itself. There is a solution. But nobody on the other side, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, and that, they will not accept the two-state solution. They will not, and they have not. This two-state solution been on the table for God knows how many years. But they will not accept it.
I can't figure out, was Hamas elected in a fair election, or were they propped up and
well, no, that's what I was trying to tell you.
What are we going to agree on here?
Well, Tim, but that's the point, right? I mean, we had our people there claiming this was a free and fair election. So that would make you an election denier if you doubt Jimmy Carter.
Heaven forbid that I do that. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, this is the problem with all these things, right? I mean, how free and how fair are all these things? I mean, people will try and tell us, yeah, it was free and fair, but, obviously we saw a lot of skullduggery in our elections too. It's hard to, be able to put your finger on exactly how much is there, but, so yeah, clearly there's stuff underhanded that's trying to distort these elections, through governments trying to put their thumb on the scale, but it's hard to know. Ultimately, though, I think we, have to put it up to these people, and best that we not get into this mess, because, here we are, hands in both sides and causing, endless blowback, and we're just getting poorer while we're doing it. It just, and quite frankly, everybody seems to be worse off.
Yeah. And I think right now, one other person worse off is James, who's probably wringing his hands that we're continuing this discussion without moving on.
Yeah. No, and I think we're going to have to can the rest of our immigration discussion.
Okay.
There we go.
Got away from us. But this will be a complete digression then from this topic. But there was a conference that happened earlier this year, and it was I think it was by the anthropologist from the Association of Anthropologists. They had to cancel a panel at one of their discussions, and it had to do with a panel on biological sex in human skeletons, because there were, I guess, politically correctness fears over the issues of, people saying this had to do with transphobia, the idea that you could tell from a skeleton whether somebody was a man or a woman. So anyways, we do have a video clip from this. So James, maybe you could bring that up. This would be clip 5.
We're getting better and better at identifying what is a male and what is a female in the skeletal record. We are getting more and more attacked for knowing how to do this. I think the American Anthropological Association has gone down the wrong path of becoming much more an activist and political organization than a scientific or even social science organization. Not too long ago, they voted, for example, to boycott Israel. So that's another example of this type of movement towards political activism. I think that the younger anthropologists more often are of this cut out of this cloth, so to speak. And as the organization is shedding some of its older members, it is becoming more and more about activism and not about science.
So that was anthropologist Elizabeth Weiss speaking on Fox News Digital. That was just a clip. You can find the rest of the interview online. James, maybe you could bring up the visual too for this. So this had to do with a conference for the Association of Anthropologists. And here's a little visual they had there. They canceled this discussion about that because, it's funny. I was bringing this up because I was going to say, hey, this is another type of religiosity that is, sort of almost a jihad against science, maybe, if you will, real science. And the funny, crazy thing is if you listen to her interview, the same people who were trying to cancel this were also protesting Israel. So I guess we can't get away from this stuff. What do you guys think about that? I mean, this is insane, right? The idea that you got these people who are in government, people, like we've seen similar folks in the Biden administration and others, and they seem to be just kind of wild-eyed, can't identify what a woman is. Yes. Even if they're called a woman and they're put in office because they're a woman, they still can't tell you what it is.
What a woman is, yes.
Anyways, what do you guys think about this?
I mean, I know we are laughing about this, and it's kind of funny, but the unfortunate thing that is going on is that a lot of science is now being infected with this woke ideology. That guy Matt Walsh did this whole documentary, and it was actually entitled "What is a Woman?" All of a sudden, after thousands of years of human history, we can't tell what a woman is. Now people are telling us a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. It has nothing to do with your XY chromosome or your XX chromosome. It have nothing to do with that. It all have to do with what you think in your head. Okay? Your genitals don't matter. Whether you have a vagina or a penis, that doesn't really matter. It's what you think in your head. So what we have in here is science, which is supposed to be based upon objective truth, is being infected with this poison of woke thinking. And this is what is going on. We just had a man, a biological man with all his genitals still intact, being proclaimed an NCAA swimming champion. I mean, he was just tearing up the women's categories, tearing
And
it up.
for our viewers, that's Leah Thomas.
Leah Thomas, yes. Okay. Now, Leah Thomas, as Will Thomas, used to swim as as um as a man, compete in the men's category, and to put it mildly, he sucked. I think he was ranked like 400 and something, 400 and whatever it was. It was a really low number. But suddenly, he started tear up the women's category. He's winning all these championships and he was declared NCAA champion. Now tell me something. What changed? Did he start to train a little more? Did he try to do something? He was eating better or anything like that? No, none of that happened. All he did was that he identified as a woman and suddenly that made him a champion. Isn't there something kind of sick about this? Now we see in the anthropology people, they're canceling a conference, a discussion, because they want to discuss biological sex in skeletal remains. What the hell is going on in our life here? That science now is transphobic to speak scientific truth? This is a sickness that is infecting too much of our society. And we better be very, very careful about where we're going with all of this.
Well, to kind of, I guess, stay within the thing about the science, and yeah, you've got to be able to talk about these kinds of things, and it's no stretch of the imagination that you can tell the sex of a skeletal remains. That's not, certainly not out of. I mean, you've got wider hips and other indications. This smaller bone structure and many
Yes.
many other things. So, I mean, this, to me, this is just indisputable. That the idea that you can tell the sex of a skeletal remains by the remains. So the whole idea about canceling a conference to discuss how you do this, and like that anthropologist said, I mean, we're increasingly coming up with new ways of being able to tell the sex of a skeletal remains.
Yes.
So to not talk about it is ridiculous. I think the two things can live hand in hand. In other words, it's no great mystery that someone born in a female body or a male body is in that body, and that if they are compelled after they've reached the adult age and they can make decisions about what to do with their own body that they have sovereignty over, then if they want to change their sex surgically and with hormonal therapy, and they really feel that strongly about it, then who am I to tell them they cannot do that to their own body? I'm just also saying that people cannot cancel a seminar to discuss how to tell the difference. I mean, to me, the two are they're on opposite ends.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is an issue of, one is simply freedom to believe whatever you want, and the other is what we call objective science and people being free to talk about that.
Exactly.
And this is what kills me about this, is that the people claiming to represent the science on gender and human sexuality in a lot of these cases are the same people who are actually trying to cancel real science. I mean,
that's wrong. That's just flat wrong.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, this is the scary thing. I mean, we have to be able to speak in objective language if we're going to be able to uncover the truths about the universe. I mean, that's the whole point of science is sort of an
Yes.
objective methodology to discuss what observations we see about the universe and try and establish patterns and everything else that we see. And the idea that somebody would want to obscure the language as much as possible so that you can't have that discussion. I mean, what are you supposed to call the skeleton if not male and female?
Male or
are we
female.
supposed to talk about the gender identities of the skeletons? Is that what they're looking for? I kind of have no idea.
You know,
what
you could you know, Jason, you could see how ridiculous this could be. Let me give you a hypothetical situation. Let us suppose someone is murdered. I mean, I'm talking current time. Somebody is murdered. We don't find their skeleton remains for a year, maybe even 2 years. Let's suppose. So
10. How about 10?
10
How
years, say
about
10
10?
years, right?
Yeah.
There's no statute of
What's
limitation.
what's the statute of limitations on murder?
None.
It's
There's
unlimited.
none.
What's
There's none.
the expiration date on Jeffrey Dahmer's fridge?
Right.
Yeah.
So the point is though, if we cannot say whether it's male or female, how could we prosecute some guy for killing his girlfriend?
Yeah.
How could we say it then?
Yeah.
I think that guy
Beyond a reason.
we'll have to let him go because we can't tell
Yeah.
whether it's male or female according to these idiots.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah. We'll have to let
How about
the guy go.
how about beyond an unreasonable doubt?
yeah, you know that just what you said really does strike some fear into me, because the idea that our whole court system is based on reasonable, and oh my gosh, where we're going seems to be completely in the realm of unreasonable.
Yeah.
This thing here is the seed of a very, very difficult issue that we'll face if we allow this to continue. It is the seed. It is the catalyst of a very, very difficult issue where it could affect the persecution of criminals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is what could happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, true. Because somebody would say, some anthropologist, by the way, a young anthropologist would come along and be a witness for the defense saying, well, you can't tell that's a female body from the skeletal remains.
And
at least I was never taught how. Well,
Yeah.
why? Well, because all the seminars are canceled that I could have gone to, but I never did.
And there's this district attorney. He is accusing some dude of murdering his girlfriend, but the defense is claiming, well, you guys saying that you can't tell the difference between a man and a woman. How you could tell the guy beyond a reasonable doubt killed his girlfriend? How could you say that?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, land. But anyways, that's about a good, I guess, a good segue to head into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. As crazy as this sounds, this time though we don't. Our Knucklehead Noise Patrol isn't going to be something as wild and outlandish as normal, but it is something that Joe Biden said in a recent speech, and it sort of ties into all this Israeli stuff as well, the Israel-Palestine conflict, but it goes deeper than that. It's about the military-industrial complex, and it was a portion of the address he gave to the nation. But I wanted to share it because it felt like it kind of lays out, for those who aren't really paying attention, what it is that, the military-industrial complex is. And it's an issue of, hey, we're building these things. It's about jobs. It's about, building stuff in the U.S. It's about, replenishing our weapons supplies. Anyways, this is the video clip. Let me share that with you. This is the address he gave to the nation about 3 or 4 days ago. So
let me be clear about something. We send Ukrainian equipment sitting in our stockpiles. And when we use the money allocated by Congress, we use it to replenish our own stores, our own stockpiles with new equipment. Equipment that defends America and is made in America. Patriot missiles for air defense batteries, made in Arizona. Artillery shells manufactured in 12 states across the country, in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, and so much more. Just as in World War II, today patriotic American workers are building the arsenal of democracy and serving the cause of freedom.
And James, maybe you could bring up the visual too for the last article here. And so, it's essentially Joe Biden was making a pitch in this for yet another $100 billion. So he's already sent over $100 billion to Ukraine in aid, which is mostly, I guess, our old weapons so that we can get fancy new weapons. And because we can't let those weapons go to waste. That's the big lesson of all this, I guess. We want to use those up so we can buy more. What do you guys think about that?
Honestly, quite frankly, I'm not sure what was Biden's point in that in the clip, because whether it is whether we send them cash or indirect aid, or we send them military aid from our own stockpiles, we're still sending the aid. I mean, we can have a big discussion about whether it's moral or not. That's a different discussion. But we are still sending the aid. It's still taxpayers' money we are using either to build the stockpile, or taxpayers' money we're using to send to Ukraine. I don't even understand what is this distinction without the difference he's trying to make. I really don't understand. I mean, to me, it's nonsensical, quite frankly.
Well, to me, he's saying essentially, let me see if I can figure it out, which is not an easy task, is that he's saying all our weapons that we have in stockpile are getting old, and so we need to replenish them. So instead of just scrapping them, sending them back to the manufacturer, maybe you can rebuild this thing for a lot cheaper. But since we want to have new updated weapons, instead of that, let's give them to other countries like Ukraine, and then we'll, get them out of our stockpile of these old, obsolete, dilapidated, I don't know, whatever they are, weapons. Probably not. They're probably quite new still, and they probably have how long is the service life on these weapons? President Biden, how long? What's the normal thing? What's the rotation? All inventory, not all inventory, but a lot of inventory has to be rotated. Okay, so he's saying instead of rotating this inventory between the manufacturer and the Pentagon, let's just give them to Ukraine, and then we'll replenish them here in the United States with American-made weapons that are brand new. And now we have our arsenal to protect our freedom. We'll have it all back into the latest and the greatest. And so I think that's what he's saying.
Well, there's a stench of immorality in this thing, then, if that is what Joe Biden is saying. I'm not trying to say that you're immoral. I'm just saying, based upon your interpretation of Joe Biden's words, I think there's a stench of immorality here. And now, whichever side you fall on, you fall in terms of whether we should be supporting Ukraine or not, is not the issue here. Okay. The point is, though, if we have decided as a government or as a people or whatever it is that we are going to support Ukraine, we're going to support them to win a war, right? They are fighting for their survival. Okay. We are going to support them. And if we are going to give them obsolete weapons or weapons that are not going to be a function as well as the new ones and all that kind of stuff and things like that, then we're not giving them weapons to win. We're giving them weapons to have a stalemate at best. That's what we're trying to do. So I mean, even if I accept your interpretation of Joe Biden, which now that I think about it, kind of makes sense. What your interpretation makes sense. But then there's a stench of immorality in our support of Ukraine. Why?
Well, that assumes that the weaponry that we're giving them is not in good working order. But
it's not as good as probably could be had then.
Well, possibly not. That could be that the newer models coming off the assembly line are slightly better, but that doesn't mean that the old models don't work. I mean, I fly a lot of old equipment in my airplane, and it still works fine. It does exactly what it's designed to do, but it's not the latest and greatest, but it works. It does the job. So what I'm saying is, I don't know what the life cycle of these weapons are. To where they go from being completely functional to being obsolete and non-functional. I don't know what that is, and he never even addressed that. I mean, it could be that we're giving them perfectly fine weapons, which begs the question: why are we continually replenishing perfectly fine weapons that still have a lifetime, maybe another 10, 15 years? Why are we going into debt to the military industrial complex to replenish those? And I know there's an argument, well, they've got to keep cycling those things in order to keep the ability to get better models every year that come out, just like our cars. They need to keep that technology going, and what better way to do it than give it to some country like Ukraine? Then that way they can blast them off, and they get rid of them, and we get rid of them, and now we have all this brand new stuff, and the companies that make them in the military industrial complex employ people that are skilled at making them, because they're constantly cycling this new stuff through the factory. You see, that's I think what he's really saying. In other words, Leon, we're not giving them obsolete weapons that don't work. We're giving them perfectly fine weapons, but to keep the gears meshing in the military industrial complex, you have to keep them making new stuff all the time to keep the skill level of the employees.
Yeah. And Tim, just to throw in another thing in this too, because certainly what you're saying makes sense, to keep the newest technology going, you got to keep buying, and all that. Yeah. But the other issue is the as far as how government funding usually works in a lot of government agencies, if you don't have a need, if you can't show a need, or you're not spending the money, then you're not going to get more money for the same thing. And so, of course, if you, oh my gosh, we need more weapons because we had this urgent need over here. So, there you go. Now you got a budget for more weapons.
It's true. And Tim, I totally, accept your explanation of all this. It's just that Biden in his statements is at best disingenuous, at worst immoral. But I accept your explanations of all this.
Yeah, and the flips. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say that this shouldn't be limited to Biden either, because you could just as easily probably hear a Republican saying the exact same thing. It would just have to be Biden in this case. So
it's valid point. Valid point.
Yeah, and the flip side of this whole thing is that we have the military industrial complex is a jobs program. That's exactly what it is. That's all it is. And that's what we're doing now is we have this whole thing propped up in all those states you mentioned, Ohio and Texas and all this, that are making all these different parts and all these different weapons. And so now it's become a force of its own. But the thing is, it's making things that are designed to destroy, and it is constantly getting us further and further into debt in order to keep this jobs program alive. And you could argue, I could take it two ways. When we got into World War II, we went from a very low level military industrial complex to we churned it up in a matter of months. The P-51 Mustang was designed, I can't remember exactly the time period, but it's super short, like 3 or 4 months. The P-51 Mustang, the best fighter of World War II, went from the drawing board to out there operational in just a matter of months. So my point is this: personally, I think that a jobs program on weapons of war is unnecessary in a country that puts more effort into diplomacy and less effort into killing the first bad guy that comes along, even if he's not much of a bad guy, like Hamas. And so that's my point, is that we really don't need to have these employees highly skilled in this kind of stuff. Let them go out there and work for a living, doing stuff like I have always done my whole life, either making teeth or flying airplanes, and get out there and do something for your fellow mankind besides making weapons that blow entire buildings apart, and entire city blocks, and so on and so forth. That's what I'm saying. So that we don't go further and further into this ridiculous debt. We put more emphasis on diplomacy. We go back to the Constitution, and we're here to repel invasions and to put down insurrections, quell insurrections,
Yes.
quell and repel, and that should be our basis for defense.
Yep. And James, one last thing, maybe you could bring up this visual real quick here. This is this is the true threat, right? Of just playing this game with the military-industrial complex. Here we are, 33, heading on to $34 trillion in debt. According to the debt clock, that is about $100,000 per citizen. And if you're only looking at people who pay taxes, that's $260,000 that we each all would have to pay that off. So that's pretty scary stuff. It sounds like we've kind of already been overrun.
Oh, we have, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my cynicism. Yeah, we're too far. It's got a life of its own now, and it ain't never going to stop. Not ever until the dollar collapses, our currency collapses. It's the only way it's going to stop. We have to have a complete collapse of the economy and where we're all impoverished. Okay, so this is a direction we're headed. Let's continue, because no one's going to stop it ever.
And so as we're also out of money, we're also out of time on the show. And so I'd like to thank you all for joining us for another episode of Knuckleheads of Liberty. I encourage you to go check out online some of the other content we have. You can go to Facebook, Spotify, Rumble, and YouTube and look for Knuckleheads of Liberty at those places. And you'll find a lot of our past shows where we've interviewed a lot of interesting people talking about what they're doing to try to promote liberty. And until the next show, I hope you'll try and think about some of what you can do in your neighborhood or in your community to promote liberty, because we need it now more than ever. So again, thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.